Welcome to episode 12 of Real Health Radio.
Welcome to Real Health Radio. Health advice that's more than just about how you look. And here's your host, Chris Sandel.
Welcome to Real Health Radio, and today I've got an interview with Maddy Moon. And Maddy Moon spent the last several years training for fitness competitions and modeling for photo shoots, only to come to the conclusion that obsessing over food and her body was taking her further away from her passion, not closer. Today, life coach Maddy Moon teaches other women and men how to take control of their relationship with food while enjoying every minute of their newfound freedom. Maddy is the host of the Mind Body Musing podcast and the author of the guide 10 Proven Steps to Ending Any Diet Obsession. She's been found on the Huffington Post, Mind Body Green, Paleo Magazine, Vice, ABC News, and Breaking Muscle. She's a graduate from the University of Texas in Austin and the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. Maddy currently resides in Colorado, coaching clients online. And I first discovered Maddy last year when she was interviewed on Matt Stone's 180 radio show. I then found her Mind Body Musing podcast and started to listen to that, and we really enjoyed what she had to say and the guests that she was bringing on the show. So I got in contact with her and we chatted, and she actually invited me on her show in the January time. And after the show, I was talking to her about wanting to do my own podcast, and she was really supportive and very encouraging. She sent me lots of links and resources and fielded my different questions. So outside of myself deciding that I wanted to do a show, Maddy is undoubtedly the biggest reason that you're now listening to Real Health Radio. And so you really got her to thank. I'm also really excited because I thoroughly enjoyed the chat we had for this show. Maddy goes through in detail about her fitness competition days and the spiral effect this had on her health and her relationship with her body. We talk about orthorexia and what it is and how it affects people. And Maddy gives some really good tips on exercises that people can do to help overcome issues around food and their body. So it's a great show. I hope you enjoy it, and let's get started. So welcome to the show, Maddy. I'm really happy to have you here. It's so great to have you.
No, thank you so much. It's my pleasure.
So to start off with, it's the question I typically start with people, but for anyone who doesn't know you, can you tell me and tell the audience a little bit about your story and how you got into the health industry?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So this starts kind of a while back. My venture with body image and food probably started anywhere between the ages of 5 and 10. I have a few memories of when I was growing up as a kid, just watching other people dieting and being obsessed with food and not really understanding why, but being really curious and seeing how, restriction brought them some sort of happiness and made them feel proud of themselves, made them superior or self-righteous. And I really noticed that as a kid, especially with the media and with television shows and even shows about warning against the dangers of eating disorders. To me, it was more like, oh, an eating disorder, it's a way to cope. That is so interesting. Maybe I should try that out whenever life gets stressful. And just kind of put that in the back of my brain, just thinking anytime I get really stressed, I don't feel like I'm in control of my life, it might be a really easy thing to just control the types of foods that I eat, because then I get that self-righteous high and I feel really good about myself. And I'm talking young when I first started to learn these things. And as I got older, I started to put them.
How young are we talking?
I would say that was probably those memories. Some of those memories are probably about second grade.
Okay.
I even have memories of being in second grade, sucking in all the time because I was told that you need to suck in now so that when you're older, it's a lot easier to suck in as an adult and to be, look thin as an adult. And if you start doing that at every red light or every stop sign or anything in the car, you just start training your ab muscles consciously, then it'll be easier when you're older. And I'm a kid thinking, why in the world do I need to suck in? And to this day, I have stomach issues that I think have been building up from the constant strain that I've put on my abdominals of trying to keep it flexed 24/7. Of learning that from when I was a kid. So that happened. And then as I got a little bit older, I discovered the world of dieting and vegetarianism and then veganism. It was very much ethically prone for those causes. I really wanted to help the environment with animals and being kind to them. But soon as I started to do that, people would compliment me and they said, wow, you look like you've lost weight. What are you doing? You look so thin. Instantly, I got that high, that sense of people are looking up to me because I'm losing weight. They want to know what I'm doing. I'm the person that they're asking. I'm the go-to girl for losing weight. And that felt so good. It was long lasting. And I really enjoyed feeling like people recognized me for something. But eventually that long lasting feeling of admiration got shorter and shorter, and I needed to keep the momentum going. So I soon became pretty obsessed. I even call it exercise addiction, with just the elliptical and the treadmill. And I had these standards that I had to burn this certain amount of calories every single day. And then I would take it a step further and start eating less than the amount that I burned, that the machine told me I burned. And this went on for quite a while. I would say a couple of years of just obsessive calorie counting plus exercise addiction and searching and yearning for those compliments that people stopped giving me. And I wanted so badly because I did not know where to get them. That was my go-to source for relief, but also for admiration.
And when that was going on, I mean, how low did your weight get? Would someone as an outsider be looking at you and thinking, wow, I think this person has an eating disorder, or was it still kind of kept within the normal realms of how a body looks for a normal person, in inverted commas?
That's a good question. I think to any family members who know my body would say it definitely looks like I was too thin. But to any outsider who didn't, no, I wouldn't say that I was to the point where you could automatically just tell, because I bounced back and forth. So in the earlier stages of my life, I bounced back and forth between anorexia and sometimes I would do bulimia, but I wasn't anorexic. It wasn't like long term. It was like spurts of one or the other. And it was just, just a way that I got that relief, feeling like I was purging,
Yeah.
So that's what I was doing. And I didn't do it consistently. I was all across the board, whether one day I'd wake up and restriction was my choice of just counting calories. The next day it was not eating at all. It was always different. So my body physically didn't appear that way then in high school and in early college. Then it didn't. As time went on, and as I quickly discovered the world of bodybuilding and fitness competitions, wow, I found this whole world that is built for eating disorders to be hidden. No one would know. It was perfect. I found this world where I would be dressed up with self-discipline. I would be dressed up with motivation, with willpower, all these wonderful qualities people would see, but I could hide my eating disorder perfectly. No one would ever have to know because I had this huge, admirable goal ahead of me. That was kind of just my go-to reason for why I'm a crazy person around food. I just had this perfect reason. I'm training for a fitness competition. I have this date planned 4 months out where I'm going to be appearing in front of hundreds of people in a tiny swimsuit. So of course I need to be dieting. And then people back off and they say, oh, okay, well, that's cool. So when I did this first fitness bodybuilding competition, I did the bikini class, and those are the more feminine, prancy, girly girl type, not the huge muscular ones, but more leaner, big boobs, big butt. And I have neither one of those things. So I had a lot of pressure on myself to meet up these standards. And I loved that feeling of feeling like I wasn't enough. And I had this goal to make myself enough. And I just pushed myself into this box where I wasn't allowed to do anything outside of the box, whether it was sleep in an hour later or eat before my morning cardio or go on a date or go out to a party where there might be drinks because I didn't want to be seen there. So I started really obsessing over my food and the perfection of my food and how well I could control this bodybuilding diet plan of mine. So I stopped I stopped thinking about not eating at all, and I became very obsessed with eating 6 times a day, perfectly on the mark. 2:00. If my meal was at 2:00 for that day and I missed it, I would probably be in turmoil for the next week, wondering if I ate at 2:03, what did I do to my chances of winning that competition? What did I do to my body? It was so on track, but I had to eat at 2:03 instead of my 2:00 mealtime. So what is going to happen now? And those small little things would eat me away. And if I didn't count the calories in my cinnamon that I put on top of my oatmeal, I would get anxious. I would be thinking all day long, okay, how many calories is in cinnamon? How many minutes do I need to spend on the treadmill now to burn off that cinnamon? And that is how obsessed I was. And it goes even beyond. I would spit food out if someone presented anything, and I would be like really wanting it for a minute, put it in my mouth like a grape or a blueberry, and then just spit it out because I was too anxious of what that single blueberry would do to my body.
And were you working with someone at that stage in terms of a coach or anything that was helping with the physique side of things, who was also then giving you directions around your eating?
I had a trainer that I hired at 24 Hour Fitness, and he wrote me a meal plan. And I mean a meal plan, one meal plan with the 6 different meals, told me what time to eat them at. And he forgot to mention most the way through the competition that I could switch up things like chicken for turkey or oatmeal for rice. I could switch those things up. He just said, eat this exact plan. So I did that for about 3 months straight, didn't eat a single thing not on that plan. It was a very low amount of calories, and I had 2-day workouts. And then eventually, about 5 weeks out from the show, he was like, do you ever have any variety? And I was surprised. I was like, what do you mean variety? He said I had to stick to this. And then he's like, no, you can change up the proteins every once in a while. They have to be equally as lean, but you can switch them up. So then that was just, my mind was blown. But of course, because a trainer said I could do that, I did it. It wasn't okay when it was just me wanting something else. It was only okay if this stranger man said I could have it. And I trusted him way more than I would ever trust myself. And that was probably the most damaging pattern I ever found myself in, was losing my intuition and only trusting these stranger people that say, I can show you the way and I can get you to where you want to be physically, because they're the last person I should really trust. But I did anyways, and he knew nothing about me whatsoever. So that was a huge
Did he know
teacher.
about then what was starting to go on in terms of your obsessiveness with the eating and just where you were finding yourself from a health perspective?
Initially, I think everyone does. That's a trainer there. Honestly, I think most people know that. If out of their mouth comes the words, do not change anything about this, I think that they know that that person they're talking to is going to have some kind of anxiety and stress. Yes, I think he believed this. I think he knew this too. I think he knew that I was getting a little bit more anxious about it, because I would text him and stuff about just what I was experiencing and the trauma. But that's a whole nother story, because he ended up being a major creepy person. Okay. He was engaged and then asked me for progress pictures and then hit on me. And then that just completely shattered my trust. So then for the last 4 weeks of my prep, I was on my own. I did not reach out to him again because I was so upset. Don't text me, like flirting with me when you're engaged, so that was very difficult as well, because then I was on my own and I just didn't know anything. I didn't know what to do. So I just continued to do my same old diet until the day of the show.
And so then on the day of the show, how did that go? And then what happened after that?
So the day of the show was a huge letdown. That's the best way to describe it. You build up all of this excitement. You build up this imaginary world in your mind where you think, this day is going to make everything I just put myself through worth it. This is going to be the best day. When you get up there and you do your 5-second twirl and walk off the stage, and then you realize those judges know nothing about your heart, know nothing about your personal purpose in life and your passions and what you do for this world. They know nothing. All they did was see if your body was just as proportionate to the girl on your left and to the girl on your right. And that experience of realizing that my body was not enough, according to these 5 strangers who told me my butt wasn't big enough, I wasn't symmetrical enough, my boobs weren't stuffed, or my padding wasn't stuffed enough. Nothing was enough to them. They wrote that down, saying, giving me a ranking of like 3 on 1 to 10. And then on the only thing I ranked well on was my tan and makeup, which I didn't do myself. So that was a blow. And that put me in a very awful mindset. I was already in a pretty terrible state, just being so anxious and obsessive over everything I put in my body, crying and frustrated. But after that, I realized even all that work wasn't enough, and I didn't work as hard as the other people did. I don't have as much reason to feel self-righteous, like I'm above everyone else for my body. I didn't have that anymore, and that left me feeling very vulnerable and frustrated. And from there, I feel like I spiraled downward in panic, where I reached out to everyone I knew that was remotely knowledgeable about calories and fitness and exercise, and asked them, what should I do now? How should I eat? How do I eat normal again? Can I ever eat normal again? I still haven't had my period back. I don't understand this. And then, about 10 people received a message like that. I was just desperate for someone to tell me how to eat. And I would research things, and I was just wanting to know, how do I put on more butt muscle? How do I put on more boob mass? How do I get good enough? How am I perfect? How do I win next time? So long story short, this has been very long, but the next time I went to do, I did another competition. I put myself through the ringer twice. And I'll just say that the next year I spent training for it was absolutely miserable, because I was trying to bulk my body up and I was putting on body fat, but mentally my mind was really scared to see the weight come on, even though muscle was coming on as well. And I came face to face with like a decision. Do I want to be skinny, or do I want to be muscular? And then later on, lean out. All these very trivial concerns were just overwhelming my brain. Instead of focusing on something big and beautiful, like life, like relationships, like faith, I focused on nothing but my body, the one thing in life that turns to dust. Never, ever is anyone known just for their body. They're known for what they do and how they make you feel in this world. And for me to spend years of my life focusing on this very trivial thing, this body of flesh and bone, that's absolutely, it has a point to get me around places, but how it looks does not at all. And so the obsession was really eating me away, and I was just really distraught for about that next year. So then I decided to do another show, because I met this coach who really inspired me to become a coach. I was right out of college. The day after college, I said, you know what? I never want to work for anyone. I'm going to be my own fitness coach. And I met this man who lived around where I lived, and he said, you can do this. I believe in you. Here, make a program, blah, 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 and then sign up for another fitness competition, because right now you need to get your DVD fitness look on. You're cute right now, but you're not sexy. And if you ever want anyone to trust you, you need to be sexier. And he took me into this mirror to mirror to mirror, all around room with the worst lighting ever, and poked and prodded and pulled at all of my skin, saying what areas need the most work, telling me what foods I am no longer allowed to eat. And just like that, I was just, yes, tell me more about what's not good about my body. Yes, keep going. Because to me, that was like, finally, someone's telling me I had to work on my body again. I needed that validation. And so the cycle continued again, and pretty much the same as it went the first go around. But the day of the show was an even more disappointment. And that was that moment after the show when I did not place first, I did not place third or fifth. I had a moment of very crystal clear realization that what I was doing was the most damaging thing I had ever done to my mind. And I was going to waste my entire life if I let this obsession with healthy eating, body image take control. So I just remember lying on that hotel bed after that second show and just said out loud to my mom, this was not worth it. None of this was worth it. And that was a very profound moment because I was always trying to say, puff up my chest and say, I'm doing this for a reason. This is worth it. This is the best. And trying to keep my cool and not let anyone see past my defense mechanism, my coping mechanism, because I wanted it to be legit and long lasting. But I finally came to terms with the fact that there are better uses for my body, there are better uses for my mind than obsessing over food, a problem that so many people in this world couldn't even dream of, or, orthorexia and having this obsession with healthy eating. How did I let myself get to this place? And from there, I took a lot of steps, but that was definitely the moment where I realized things need to change.
And look, I've seen some photos from you in the bikini contest. I don't know which one it was. And from a standards of beauty that our society holds, you have sort of quote unquote the perfect body. And I think it's funny the way that you then described that, because most people think that when they get that perfect body, that they're going to feel so confident that they're going to have that amazing love interest show up in their life, that they'll feel so good. And really, from everything you've described, it was the total opposite for your experience.
Yes, exactly. I wrote an article recently on the Huffington Post called Top 5 Ways to Get a Sick Pack instead of a six pack. And one of the reasons that I would really love to talk about was just losing your sex drive. First of all, losing your sex drive, that goes along with the hormones are getting wonky, but also feeling less confident and feminine. And this is not for everyone, but for a lot of us, I will say a lot of us, if you reach that level of deprivation of your cells, your nourishment, your mind, your body, you're energyless, the first thing to go obviously will probably be your period. And along with that will go your sex drive. Those are bummers, big bummers. But I think the worst thing that happens is when you lose your confidence, because confidence does not rely on your body whatsoever at all. And for so long, I believed that lie. I thought that if I got that fitness model cover magazine body, then I would have all the guys gushing over me. I would finally have that self-worth, and I would feel so sexy and wear lingerie that looked like the Victoria's Secret models when it was on me. And I would finally just have that look that I've wanted for so long. And when I got to my leanest, when I got to my most thin, I will say, because when I was doing those competitions, I lost most of my muscle. I was for the first one at least, I was very thin. And I could put on lingerie, and I looked like the perfect model with the lingerie on. But guess who saw me in that lingerie? Nobody. Nobody saw me in that. I didn't want to leave my bedroom. I didn't want to date. I didn't want anyone to get me off my perfect meal plan, because if someone wanted to date me, that most likely meant they want to drink wine together or cook together or go to ball games and have a hot dog, and all those things terrified me. So it was better to just say no and to crawl away. And more than that, I did not feel like I deserved that. I didn't feel like I earned it yet. I did not earn the privilege of eating those foods because I had not yet earned the perfect body, and I needed to do all those things first. But the best way to describe how I felt with that body was that everywhere I went, I'd want to walk with my head down. I'd either want to walk with my head down, or I'd want to somehow puff myself up to look bigger. And both of those things just reflect my insecurity at the time. I had so much insecurity. I was not sure of who I was, my purpose, because I thought it was just about my body, and I was failing at that. So I wanted to just be as manly as possible, as manly with my abs and with the protein shakes and the bodybuilding. I wanted to be one of the guys. I was no longer one of the ladies. I didn't want to be one of the ladies because I wanted to be as masculine as I possibly could. And that all goes very hand in hand with the hormones and all of the ideals that I set for myself to be this strong, will-powered human being, instead of welcoming the feminine side of myself and welcoming sleep and rest and beauty and reading and enjoyment and feeling sexy and wearing the lingerie. None of those things were in the cards for me because they weren't towards my physical ab goals and all of those things I was working towards.
Yeah. And look, what you've described there, I see play out with so many clients. And it's this idea of that when I get the perfect body, then everything's going to change. And just that obsessiveness leads to them missing out so much on life. And the great irony is that these are people, a lot of the time that I'm seeing, who already have the perfect body by society standards, who already are a size 6 or a size 8, that majority of the population would give their right arm to look like. Mm-hmm. And it's like there's just that mentality of enough is never enough. And as you've already sort of touched on, that I think with a lot of issues around disordered eating, there's two sides to it. There is the side in which it is very much about how you look, but there's the other side where it's very much about I'm using this as a tool to deal with issues of control, to self-soothe and to comfort myself. And from that side of things, and I find a lot of the time that you can get over the body image side, but you're then left with but what do I do to deal with all of these other issues? Because this is my tool.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So from there, well, first of all, I want to say something real quickly on the touching on the confidence and body side, because you just made me think of something that I just have to share. Everyone listening to this podcast, this is something I do with my clients, but I really want everyone to just think about that one person in their life that radiates confidence. The one person that just comes to your mind first. You just, every time you see her or him, most likely if it's a woman that's listening to this podcast, think of another woman who just, every time you see her, you just feel bubbly, you feel confident, like ready to rock the world. And I can guarantee more times than not, it has nothing to do with her body. She does not have the society standards of perfection with her body, but it's something else that's within her. And that is such a great inspiration to look towards whenever you think of that one person who has that going for her. And she's not letting any body concerns steer the path of her life, which I think is just so powerful to think about. And we all have someone like that in our lives, whether it's our mom, our best friend.
Yeah. And I know if I'm thinking about from my side of things, and I think it's different for guys. And in a lot of ways, I know there are a lot of expectations that are now put on guys, and that men are now suffering more with eating issues and body insecurities, but it's nowhere near the size or the way that it is for women. But the people I know who are most confident, they're not the people who are appearing on the front cover of Men's Health and have perfect abs. They're confident for whole other reasons. Exactly.
And in regards to the next topic that you were talking about, coping mechanisms, and what do you do now? Like, your body has found this perfectly, sometimes easily concealed coping mechanism that it can run to anytime times get stressful. If you're going through a breakup, count your calories. If you're stressed at work, start a new diet. It's just so easy and it's so convenient and available that how do you break that link that you have so tightly with that coping mechanism? And that's a very, very intricate process, I'll say, but it is so done. So the first thing that I really recommend people to start doing is thinking about fun things. Create a fun list. Create a list of things that you are dying to try and are interested in just doing. It's very simple. It can be anything from going on more dates or making more cocktails or like trying a cooking class or doing all of these fun things. I love to bike ride, so put bike riding on there, or rock climbing, or just walking around the park listening to a podcast. You have this awesome sound list of stuff. So before we start diving into taking away all of your coping mechanisms in life and leaving you feeling vulnerable and naked, we start adding those things in. So you just start thinking one thing a week, one thing you would love to add into your life. And then you start to realize after you go on that 10-mile bike ride, you feel really freaking good afterwards. That felt really, really good. So now you have another source of coping in your coping mechanism brain bank. So you've got a whole list of things probably that have to do with hating your body, self-denial, restriction, but now you finally have something a little bit more positive in there. And then the next week you try something else, and you can do this for a couple of months, just trying one thing at a time. And this is merely building up that awareness about what you really are capable of doing. If you're stuck in that place of, I can't do anything because I don't have the perfect body yet, you start incorporating these things. And now, soon enough, you realize that the high that you obtain after doing something like that is so much greater than the high you obtained with restricting, because that's short, it is not long lasting, it's painful, and it's hurtful to both your mind and body. So whenever you start doing other things that are just more pleasurable, you start realizing, if I have to cope with my job, then this is a great way for me to do that. And then after you start building up that, you can dive even deeper, and you can start to figure out what's making you need to cope anyways. What is the root issue of what's going on here? Why do you feel that your body can make up for X, Y, and Z, and uncovering X, Y, and Z? So say maybe it is a toxic relationship and you keep trying to prove your worth to this person by changing your body, and it's running you into the ground. Well, that relationship is really the issue of what's going on. And if you can face that issue head on and you can find a solution that works for you and your life, it's going to help create a much more well-balanced, rounded relationship with food, because food has never been the problem. Your weight is, for many people, is an issue in their minds, but sometimes it goes even beyond weight. All those things, just abandonment as a child, or just not being taken care of as a child with food, or judgment, all of those sources is what you need to come face to face with to get to the deeper issue. And that can be a process for sure. One great way to get into the heart of it is just journaling, and to write letters to specific parts of your past, to specific people in your life that are toxic, to start to realize what triggers you the most, whether it's social media or it's magazines or it's books or it's people. Knowing what your triggers are in life so that you can start to avoid them or diminish their appearance in your day-to-day life helps a lot. So there's so many different things you can do to start moving towards a more enlightened life, where you're really using your experiences and you're using your gifts in this world to feel fulfilled. Because once you have that purpose in life, it doesn't have to be your entire life's purpose, but your purpose in life, which is very different. It's just what you're working on right now. It's your purpose right now because it brings you that joy and that comfort and that it feels like home. That's what you want to be working on, instead of counting how many grams of carbohydrates were in that apple, because that's the last thing that's going to get you to a place of feeling fulfilled.
Yeah, definitely. And I would say with that, so often people think that their issues are, as you say, around food, and they're not. And often they're not got anything to do with someone's body, but it's a lot easier to be thinking, well, my relationship is like really bad, so it must be because of my body, and let's focus that way. And so the body just becomes the source of all of your issues, when the majority of the time it has nothing to do with your body. But it's a lot easier to say that to yourself than to be looking at what's sort of deeper underneath all of that stuff.
Oh, yeah. It's terrifying. It's terrifying. Even the idea of taking away that coping mechanism, even the idea of not having an eating disorder can be the scariest thing you'll face all year. Like, it can be terrifying, and that's going to make you want to run to it even more. Just the thought of not having that anymore to use as a label, if you're the kind of person that just really wants a label, or like I said earlier, a reason to feel self-righteous, which was the case for me. Even the thought of not having that anymore leaves you feeling very scared, because without that, you might be at a place where you think, without that, who am I? What do I even like anymore? What do I like to do? And that, instead of looking at that situation as terrifying and as something you want to run away from, instead look at it as an opportunity to experience, to be curious, because in this circumstance, curiosity is way more powerful than just being brave. Being curious during this time and just thinking and observing and wondering and just looking at your life as a whole, and kind of take a step back and to look at it as not just you not having your coping mechanism, not having something taken away from you, but having so much more added.
Yeah. And I would say with that as well, often people try and think their way out of these situations. And yes, it's good to be reflective on things and to think things through, but no one gets over this by thinking their way out. It has to be about actions. And so often when people start to include new things and go out of their way and take themselves out of their comfort zone, they realize that it wasn't anywhere near as bad as they thought it was going to be. And the thing that they were terrified about was actually a really enjoyable experience. And so action is where I kind of really encourage people to be going with this and not just trying to think their way out.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you said that. Yes, that's so true. Just thinking about it is way more scary than actually doing it. I've never worked with someone that went through a challenge I gave them, like to go eat a certain meal or add in a certain food, and afterwards they didn't say that was amazing, and I'm so glad I did it. And it makes it so much easier the next time and the next time and the next time and the next time. And sure, there'll be moments, I still have moments today where it's like you might get a little bit panicky, or you might just have a moment where you're stressed about something and want to turn to food, but it's way easier to snap out of it and to say, that's not the answer. Especially thinking about it is not the answer. That's going to do nothing for me. It's not going to launch me forward in life. And when you get to a point where you're obsessed with being launched forward in life and you just love it and you just love progressing as a human being, it's almost impossible to get back into the throes of that eating disorder because you know how good it feels on the other side.
Sure. And with your experience, I mean, how long did the recovery process take? I mean, are you still in the recovery process? And from a health perspective, how's your health now versus before you got into this whole mess?
I would say that the recovery process probably lasted for about a year and a half, and I'm not going to say I'm perfect today whatsoever, but I'm definitely I'm at a very great spot mentally. Mentally, I have found my calling, and it requires interviewing people, podcasting, and coaching. And I love those things so much that my sanity with food kind of sort of relies on that. Like I have to be balanced with food in order to help other people. And that purpose beyond me is way more powerful. So finding a purpose beyond me has helped my mental well-being so much. I love helping people with their relationship with their body image so much that it helped my recovery happen smoothly because I found myself talking about it more and more, writing about it, journaling about it, speaking with others about it. And with helping others, I helped myself more than I could have possibly imagined. And that's mentally. So there will still be times every once in a while where I'll have to do something or I'll have to eat certain food and I haven't quite eaten it yet. Like I don't eat pizza often. And I don't know if it's because I don't like pizza or is it because I just didn't eat pizza for like 7 years of my life. And I eat it every once in a while and it's normally pretty fine, but I still have those moments where I wonder and I think, why am I avoiding this food? But I let it pass. I say, you know what? It's not worth spending this time to just think about it, dwell on it. If I want it, I'll eat it. I know I will. So that's how I handle things mentally today, which is just so much better where I can just sit back and relax and not overanalyze and overthink, because even overthinking recovery can be a dangerous spot. Wondering, am I recovered? Am I not? Did I hit the recovery mark? So I like to be open about the fact that I still have moments where I'm like, what? Why am I thinking that way? But instead of overthinking the recovery process and wondering, I just say, oh, well, like I'm observing that crazy thought I just had in my head. I'll let it, come through me and pass, and then it's gone.
And
so
I think
let it move.
For a lot of people who haven't had a disordered relationship with food, they still have those thoughts. And I try and remind clients of that as well, that just having those thoughts doesn't mean that there's still an issue going on, or the fact that you had a big meal where you ate more than you would have liked and you felt really sore afterwards doesn't mean that you've had a binge episode, or it doesn't mean that you've kind of reverted back to the way that you're eating around food. It just means that you're a normal human being. Right. And so differentiating between those things, I think, is really important.
Right. That is just life. Like that is life. And some days you want to be eating more than other days. Some days you get super full and stuff. But instead of panicking in those moments, because trust me, I completely understand that feeling of panic. Oh my gosh, I'm so bloated. My stomach is so big. Is it going to be like this forever? It's not. your body is going to work through it. It's going to digest it. It's going to leave your body. And then you're going to be hungry for breakfast. Like everything is going to be all good. Don't worry. So just relaxing in this moment. And in regards to my health today, my health is actually 10 million thousand times better. That's 10 million thousand times better. No, my health is way better than it was during those times. My digestion. So I'll first say with my hormones, my period finally came back on Valentine's Day of this year.
Nice.
Which was a little present from my body saying, thank you for loving me again. I love you too. Here you go. And that was amazing. I was so excited. And then a few days after that, I met my boyfriend who I now live with and I'm madly in love with. So it's just been a fantastic year, with my heart and my mind and my body. But where I am today, now that I've got my hormones a little bit more straightened out, I'm having to deal with some post-eating disorder stomach problems. And I've recently been coming out about this just to talk it through because I'm realizing a lot of people that have had orthorexia also experience this. So when you first start the recovery process with orthorexia, after orthorexia, you may realize that your stomach has a harder time digesting new foods. If you only ate smoothies for a year, you might have a problem eating solid foods or a hamburger or a sandwich. It might cause some frustration in your stomach, and that is normal. That's so normal. You want to take the process slowly. You might want to take some supplements to help you with easing back into eating certain foods. But what happens when it's been a year after that, or 2 years or 3 years? And so for me, for the longest time, I just really assumed that the reason my stomach can't handle most foods or combinations of foods is because I was getting used to eating things again. But I've very quickly realized that eating clean as a whole, being obsessed with eating clean has, I'm not going to say permanently, but has very much distraught my stomach and my digestive system. So I have IBS, and I'm dealing with IBS where I have to start restricting some foods again while keeping food freedom. And this is the very interesting part about it, is how am I doing that? Because a lot of people reach out just saying, how in the world are you restricting foods, doing the same actions you did when you had your eating disorder, but you're not obsessing over it? And the most important thing I can say that I'd want to stick with people is that no event or action or deed is inherently good or bad. It's how it makes you feel. It's the perception of it. It's what it does inside of you as the individual that is not healthy, or it is healthy. So for me, I restricted before, but I did it out of the eyes of self-denial and loathing and hate, and I was never enough. So that in itself caused all sorts of stomach problems, anxiety, and stress. But today I'm having to do some figuring out of what's going on in my stomach so that I can start eating more foods again and just get my digestive track back on track. And that was really scary at first. I was thinking, like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to continue to preach, eat the food, eat all the food, like eat this and eat that, if I myself am not doing that currently? That really scared me. It terrified me. And I had a moment where I was like, am I going to get obsessed with this? So as I've been doing this, and as I have been taking out a few things here and there that I have suspicions are causing me pain, I'm doing it out of love, pure love. And I don't want to get too woo-woo, but this experience has been like no other before. My relationship with food is in a completely different place than it's ever been. But every time I say I'm not choosing to eat that food, it's not because I fear of what it's going to do to my weight or my size or my abs or my boobs or whatever. It has nothing to do with the fluctuation of my body. And it has everything to do with, I want this food to lift me up and make me feel ready to go biking later, or just not leave me in pain so that I can write a blog post or do my work. I want to feel good, and I want food and my body to be the last thing on my mind. So being able to eat in a way that doesn't cause me physical pain is kind of the key to that. Because if I'm experiencing physical pain, I'll be thinking, what did I eat? How did I eat? How do I not eat next time? So I'm doing this process out of love so that I can not have to think all day long about food in the future. And I kind of maneuver the waters of what makes me feel the best. And like I said, there is a huge difference between self-denial and self-nourishment. And right now I am absolutely nourishing myself. And anyone else going through this process of thinking, I had orthorexia, I am 2 years post-orthorexia, and I'm trying to eat the foods, but I'm having all this stomach problems. If I restrict, will I be orthorexic? No. Just like you said, Chris, you're not inherently, if you eat too much, you're not binge eating. It's the same. If you start taking out foods again, just to figure out of love what's going on in your tummy, that does not mean you're obsessed, does not mean you're orthorexic, and it does not mean that you're sacrificing all of the other beautiful things in life for that diet, because it has nothing to do with how you look, and it has everything to do with how you feel. And so that's kind of where I am today, just trying to figure out exactly how I want to be nourishing my own body, what makes me feel best. And who knows, in a month it could be different. I could be healed after doing all the stuff that I've been doing for my gut. But maybe it'll be longer, and that's okay, because I'm here on this earth for more than just food and more than eating and dieting. I am here to spread this message, and food keeps me alive, regardless of if it gets me a few tummy issues here and there. So I'm just happy that I can still be promoting this positive message with everyone.
Sure. And one of my slight gripes with intuitive eating, and I think it's an amazing tool set for people, but I find that a lot of the focus with intuitive eating is on what do you feel like eating from a taste perspective. So if you could pick any food and you could just pick off any menu, what would you go for? And if whatever it is, you should just go for that. And I think that when people are doing intuitive eating, there should be that focus on what do I want to eat from a taste perspective. But there then needs to be included in that a thought about, well, how does this affect my body? And how do I feel after eating this? And you're then an adult, and you can then choose to say, you know what, I know when I eat pizza that the next day I feel shitty, but I'm going to still eat it because I want it to taste good. And I think you're better off making that choice and that conscious choice where you're weighing up the pros and cons, not just from a food taste perspective, from a health perspective. And I know that that's then a slippery slope for someone who has been orthorexic, and there is so much judgment around health and healthy eating. But what I'm wanting to do as part of that is bring that judgment or people's decisions back to reality, as opposed to just that stuff is bad in inverted commas. It's that stuff actually doesn't work for me, and I know it doesn't work for me because I've tried to eat it for the last 3 months, and every time I do, it's not great. And so there's a big difference, and getting someone to understand intuitive eating from that perspective is a lot of the way that I take it with people. And I guess it's because I'm originally trained as a nutritionist, so sometimes I find it difficult to take off that nutritional hat when I'm looking at things. But I think if people can approach stuff from that angle, it makes it a lot easier.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Intuitive eating, it's a thing, so it has its own boundaries and guidelines, and this is right and this is wrong. But if you take away all of that, if you take away the fact that we all know intuitive eating is actually a book and it's got a prescription for how you do it, just think about the title, intuitive. And intuitive would really mean exactly what you're saying, thinking about how this food is going to make you feel. It's using all of your different senses. And
yeah,
what I normally talk about is mindful eating. There's a book called Mindful Eating. I don't know if you've read it, but it talks about all the different senses, using all those different senses every time you eat. So there's 7 different types of hunger, and one of them is heart hunger, which I think is really interesting. So when you sit down to a meal and you're thinking oh, that sounds good, and it's spaghetti, and it just so happens to be that every Monday night in your family household you had spaghetti, and that was the one time your family sat down to the dinner table together. You're feeding your heart hunger in that instance. And you can acknowledge it as an adult. You can acknowledge it and be like, oh, well, I'm probably craving this because I really missing those memories of all of us at the table together. And then you can say, I'm going to eat it. It sounds great. But then you can also think of the other side of like nose hunger and eye hunger and just wanting to look at the beautiful plate in front of you, all these different reasons. But it's interesting that you brought that up about intuitive eating and how it's going to make you feel, because I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and she was saying that she has Hashimoto's and can't eat gluten. Yep. And she'll have severe reactions, and she doesn't want to be eating those things and all these other things. So basically she eats paleo, and she was saying, I love all my food that I eat, but I can't just go out and eat a gluten-filled burger. So does that mean I'm not intuitive eating? And it was a very good conversation, because we got to talk about how, yes, that is still intuitive eating, because you're using that sense knowing tomorrow I'm going to feel awful, maybe even for a week if I eat that. So using your judgment of knowing what's going to make you feel like the best human being possible, and then picking from that selection, oh, that sounds like the best option for me, egg and avocados, nom, yum. That's what you go with. And then that's going to set you up for success with your mental health, your emotions. Yeah, that was intuitive because it's what sounds good based on taste. But it's also going to leave your digestive system rocking it, and you're going to have energy to go ride your bike later. I think that is intuitive eating at its prime. And I agree that it does not, that stage right there takes a while to get to.
Yeah. It might not be. And I will add that it's not where someone can start a lot of the time. Because if someone's already in the mentality of good foods and bad foods and worry and anxiety, they're just not at a stage where they can differentiate. And if there is a whole load of fears going on around eating, it's hard to get a really accurate gauge of, is this actually the food doing this, or is this my beliefs around how food affects my body, etc.? And so it's hard to really understand that stuff. So it's a later on process.
Yeah, exactly. When I first started branching out and eating those fear foods, I'm not going to say that I had any boundaries or questions I had to ask myself. The only thing I went for a while was what sounds good. And then I ate that. I ate exactly that. What sounds good? And I would eat a lot. I mean, I would eat as much as I wanted. I would get super, super, super full. And this happened for months and months and months. I didn't work out. I didn't go to the gym. I ate all the food. I finally experimented because I wanted to see what would happen to my body. How would it make me feel? And for a time, I was so enjoying it that I did not really feel like my digestive issues were even around, because I was just really zoning in on the experience of taste and emotions, and how branching out made me feel scared, but then made me feel relaxed, and all the different stuff that came along with that. So I think that process is so crucial and so important for anyone just taking that first step out of an eating disorder, is eating a meal that's kind of scary, and then maybe a week later eating another meal, and then a week later, and then you might get to a point where you say, screw it, I'm just going to eat whatever I want all the time. And then you go for it. And then later on, you more than likely will get to a point where your body is making very loud signals about what it really wants to be fed. And then you'll take it from there when you get to that point. But that's not even something you have to think about for right now in the initial stages.
Sure. And I know you were recently featured on ABC Nightline News about orthorexia. We've used the term a number of times in this podcast. So for those who are unaware with the condition, what is orthorexia, if you can just explain it?
So orthorexia is an obsession with what one considers to be healthy eating or pure. So the very important part to remember with this definition is of what one considers. It has nothing to do with what is actually, quote, healthy. It's only about what the individual deems to be pure, healthy, and the most perfect foods, basically. So this obsession, this disorder, gets a lot of hate. I will say that, because people immediately hear this term and they're like, oh my God, another label. People are just dying to put on labels. Like, so now I have a disorder because I eat healthy. No, no, that is not what orthorexia is about. Everything I have shared in this podcast pretty much sheds light on what it actually is like to have orthorexia, like crying on the bathroom floor because your cinnamon has, 1 calorie and you didn't burn that off at the treadmill earlier in the morning. It generally comes along with other obsessions or addictions, such as exercise addiction. It kind of goes alongside each other, but not always. Like I said with the drinking only smoothies earlier, I have a friend who was orthorexic, but she only ever consumed anything that was in smoothie form. And if anything was not in smoothie form, she would not eat it, or she would eat it and be extremely upset, anxious, stressed. And that would cause digestive issues, and that would cause anxiety and lower confidence, and she wouldn't go out and have fun. She wouldn't date. All of those things that life is meant for get taken away when someone has orthorexia, because they don't feel like they deserve it anymore unless they are perfect with their diet. And the trick is, you're never going to feel perfect with your diet, because perfect and perfection is subjective. And if you're the judge of perfection, you'll never reach that point. So even whenever you think you're eating a perfect meal, you'll probably still, someone with orthorexia will probably still say, was it perfect, or did I miscount the calories? And so they'll go back and they'll check their calorie counter again. They'll say, no, it was right. But then for the rest of the day, they doubt themselves and they just think, no, it couldn't have been perfect. So in my instance, I was more obsessed with calories and having control. So if I was told by my coach that I could have this much protein and this much carbohydrates, I could do that just fine, because he told me I could, and I was in control of it, and I could eat that exact amount and then move on to my next meal. But for some people, it's like veganism, and anything that touches meat or anything that doesn't have kale alongside it is not healthy, and so therefore will pretty much break down their identity. It's more of an identity crisis than anything, because you have this label alongside of being of eating healthy as being the healthy eater, being the yogi, being the green juice girl, being the bodybuilder, the paleoite. Whatever it is, you're that person that everyone knows you have these standards, and you're so obsessed with keeping that label and acting on it and being perfect that it destroys everything else going on around you.
Yeah, and I think identity is a really big part of that, and how people eat didn't used to be a big part of their identity. So you didn't have these whole kind of cults around the way that people eat that we do now. And I've written an article before about orthorexia, and the way I talked about it in terms of healthy eating, because I come up against the same thing where people are like, are you telling me that healthy eating is now a bad thing? It's like, no, healthy eating is not a bad thing. It's like looking at someone with OCD who washes their hands all the time and turning to that person and saying, you don't have a problem, cleanliness is a good thing. Like, cleanliness is a good thing, but not when you're washing your hands for 3 hours a day. Healthy eating is a good thing, but not when that healthy eating is actually not supporting your health whatsoever, and physically, mentally, emotionally, it's ruining your life. So healthy eating is very different to what's going on when someone is orthorexic. Yes,
exactly. And I love that you just said that washing your hands is a great way to describe it to people. And I might have to borrow that because that's a really good way to explain what it is, because people just have such a difficult time understanding it. And I had a conversation with the doctor that coined the term orthorexia the other day on the phone. We were just talking about it, and he was saying how much hate mail he gets from people. People just really go to town on him because of coining this term, which is interesting, because I don't know. I just find it very difficult to understand how people can feel like they have the right to put others down for something they don't understand. I guess that's a little bit ignorant of me to not understand that. I'm not trying to understand that, but I don't get it, because it is such a dangerous disorder, and it scares me because people will read comments like orthorexia isn't real, and then they'll justify themselves out of getting help, and they'll say, oh, okay, it's not real, I don't have a problem, I don't need help, and then they'll continue doing exactly what they're doing while they're going through a divorce, because they can't handle the stress of having a partner in a relationship with their eating disorder. And then they no longer seek help because they read from all these different people, that's not real, that's not real, that's not real. So I think this is the beginning stages of opening up about the conversation of orthorexia, which this is probably expected. This probably happens with most new terms that are coined. Everyone attacks it because it's new. But my hope and my goal is that the more we talk about it, the more people will open up about it and then seek help, and people will be more aware and sensitive to the issue in the same way they are about anorexia.
Yeah. And for what you were saying there about people reading in the newspaper or magazines that it's not real and that then affecting their beliefs, I come against the same thing when I'm talking to clients about the fact that you're only eating 1,200 calories a day or 1,300 calories a day. That's not healthy. That's why you're getting a lot of the issues you're getting physically, mentally. And then they kind of come back and they're like, but look, you read it in the magazine that this is the diet that this person's on and that this is a healthy diet and that this is really normal. And so people's perception about what is correct and what is healthy and what they should be doing is really skewed. And I posted an article recently about a fitness blogger over here who's been sort of taken to hospital with an eating disorder, and she's got lots of fans on Instagram and Facebook. And I know that this is sort of the tip of the iceberg, that there's so many people within the wellness field and within the nutrition field who are portraying this idea of health and these real extreme ideals about what's healthy and what a normal meal looks like and what you should be doing. And underneath all of this, they're really struggling with eating disorders and problems themselves. And I think this is really damaging because you have so much of people looking to these people as they know what's healthy. This is what I should be doing. This should be the standard I'm living up to. But behind closed doors, these people are totally suffering and it's not supporting the health the way that they're making out it to be.
Yes, and I'm a great example of that. People were following me thinking that I had everything going on. I was the healthy girl. I was very balanced. I had great relationships, but that is exactly what I wanted them to see. And that's what is the same with, models and this fitness model over where you are. I mean, it's so easy with social media to only show the highlight reels and say, Look how fabulous my life is. Look how fabulous my green juice is. Look how fabulous my abs are. Don't you want this? Here, give me this much money and you can have it. And then they'll let you be. And then you'll never hear from them again. And then you'll just have to fend for yourself as you try out that 12-week program, lose your period, overwork yourself, become obsessed, and then go on this 2, 3, 4 year long venture of trying to find the perfect diet because you want to look like that one person that has all sorts of issues going on. And I think one of the biggest things in life it's just worth living is relationships. Like other people, people are amazing. I love people so, so, so much. And the fact that having that body oftentimes limits your interaction with other people, limits your interactions of freedom, of just moving around and visiting people and hanging out and having a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a wife or a good relationship with your mom, your kids, setting an example for your kids. When that suffers because you want to have something no one in this world cares about, no one cares about your abs. No one cares about your abs. I'll just say that. We all think people care about our abs, but no one cares about our abs. You care about your abs, but no one else cares about your abs. They would rather have a person that is present with them in their conversation, that can stay awake, that has mental clarity because they're not, living their life without any fat intake at all. They would rather have you there present and having fun than having a six-pack because that doesn't do much for y'all's relationship at all. So it's really about finding those values. And if you're one of those people, which most of us are, that can easily get caught up in social media and looking at other people and saying, wow, their life looks so great. I want to look like that. I want to buy their program. All my dreams will come true if I have that. Then you're not alone. I do that too. So the best thing you can do is simply unfollow those people and go follow some accounts that really inspire you, some kitten accounts or some just like really awesome Olympic accounts. I don't know. It's just something that motivates you to live life in a way you want to instead of look like another person, because genetics don't work that way. And your mind isn't going to want to be on this wild chase forever. And if social media keeps bringing you back to that place of not being content and unsatisfied with your life, then it's such an easy fix to just get rid of that account or just get rid of social media, just spend less time on social media and just see what it's like. Just see what it's like to go about your day without those influences. And I promise you there's going to be a huge difference in your thinking.
Yeah, and I'm always saying to people to be really aware of the environment that they're creating. And that's the environment in terms of mailing lists they're on and Facebook and magazines they're reading and books they're reading, but also the internal environment in terms of what people say to themselves and what old events or future events they constantly play, because all of those things then really impact on your experience in life, what you believe, etc. I'm always trying to kind of take a positive spin on things with clients, and I'll regularly tell them that, you know what, in 5 years from now, I bet you'll look back on the pain and the suffering and everything you've gone through as part of this, and you'll feel that you're a better person because of it, that you're more confident than you ever were, that you're more compassionate, that you're a better partner or a better parent. Do you feel that that's the case with you? And are you able to make that, are you able to see that that's been a positive thing in your life, even though at the time it was really horrible, or that's not something you would agree with?
Absolutely. I would almost go so far to say that having orthorexia in my past is the best thing that's ever happened to me, honestly. It sounds probably really wonky and messed up, but those experiences have made my purpose. Without those, I would not be where I am today. I would not be an eating disorder body image coach. I would not be writing for the Huffington Post or on ABC News, like all of those things. I would not have a message because I would have no experiences to go alongside it. You know, everything I do today is based off of those experiences in those years. Those years I have to revisit every single day. They are not just long gone in my past. I talk about them daily. I write about them daily. Without those, I would not be helping anyone, especially not in this arena. I'm sure I would be helping people in some other way. But this comes so naturally to me to talk about, and I love talking about it. I love being open about it and sharing with people, and knowing that my experiences are helping hundreds of other people. Wow. That nothing could ever come close to touching that. That just makes me feel so where I'm supposed to be. Like, there's not any other way to describe it. I just feel like I am where I am supposed to be. Everything happened perfectly, exactly how it's supposed to happen. And even more so, going beyond just like what I do now, my children. Now I have experience and insight on the things that I don't want to do, and the kind of language I don't want to blurt out in front of my kids. That's so easy, so innocently said. It's so easy to make a comment about, I feel fat, or I need to get on a diet, or something like that, or, oh, that's this many nutrients. Like, I don't want that kind of language being in my household. So now that I've had that kind of experience, whenever I have kids, now I know. I have that knowledge, and then hopefully my children will pass that on. And I just hope that everyone realizes their experiences with any kind of food or body struggle can be used for the greater good. You are the victor, not the victim. And while it may seem very difficult at times, and while right now it may not seem like this is at all even close to being a beneficial thing, in some way or another, every experience can shed light on another person and can help another person, or can just help your future. And that's my goal, is for people to eventually see it that way. And I think one of the easiest ways to get started on that is just to share your journey, be vulnerable with people, share how your struggles are going, your triumphs, make connections with people in similar boats as you, and feel less alone in this journey, because you're not alone at all, for anyone that's experiencing this. And then hopefully one day you will be able to look back and see that your experience is the same way that I am seeing mine today.
Great. And look, it's been lovely chatting with you, and you have such a great take on things. And I love the fact that you went into such detail on your story, and I know that that's going to really help other people. So if someone's wanting to find out more about you, where should they be going?
So my website is maddymoon.com, and that's Maddy, maddymoon.com. And I have a free book for anyone that wants to learn more about me. It's called 10 Proven Steps for Ending Any Diet Obsession. So you can learn a little bit more about how I personally got out of my darkest days of orthorexia. And then on top of that, I have a podcast called the Mind Body Musings Podcast, and that's on my website, but you can also find it on iTunes and Stitcher.
Cool. And I would highly recommend people to check out both the website and the podcast. When I'm working with clients, Maddy's podcast is one that I send to people a lot. So definitely check it out. So thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been a great chat, and I know people are going to really use and benefit from this.
Thank you so much. This was such a treat.
Thanks for listening to Real Health Radio. If you are interested in more details, you can find them at the 7 Health website. That's www.7, health.com.